Hello and welcome everyone to the OddKey Cafe. This is a live show hosted in Todd McFarlane's online community. Tonight, we're joined by the living legend, Greg Hildebrandt. Greg, thank you so much for being here. How are you this evening?
Here. Nice to be here.
So over your career, what work has been most fulfilling and rewarding for you personally, and not your brand, not what blew you up, but like what have you enjoyed the most creative-wise?
Oh my God, I've done so many things. I don't think that I can zero on one thing. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
I've done a lot of work for Marvel. I've done heavy metal stuff. I've done the Trans-Siberian Orchestra art. I started my career in Detroit, Michigan. That's where I was born in an industrial animation studio. They produce industrial films in this company. And I worked with Max Fleischer animators and one Disney animator from the old days, from the golden days. And I started my career then. And I think some of the stuff I worked on then, I'm very proud of. And then I made documentary films on world hunger in the 1960s. I ran camera, did sound, edited, designed the films, basically. So I've done children's books, Western, I've done textbooks. Religious. I've done religious art. I've done my own pinup art, retro type 40s, 50s type pinup girls. So I can't. And then I've done a lot of my own personal dream paintings. I suppose in a sense, that's kind of like the most satisfying because it's all me and it's from my subconscious. And I think, if anything, those are the things that I would like to show at Heaven's Gate to get in.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Create My Comic, welcome up to stage, man.
Hi. Hello from Germany. Thank you for taking time out to talk to us. That is really awesome from you. My question. I just wanted to ask how you come up with your ideas about the composition. I think your images, they always have a great composition, an amazing sense of scale, and a lot of details. Like when I work, I have an idea for the composition and what I want to have in the picture, but it's not as detailed as your work. So I'm wondering if it's just a lot of reference, or you really come up with all those details in your initial ideas.
Well, I do use a lot of reference. I mean, when I'm painting figures, I pose models. And much of the time over my whole career, I've made the costumes, I've made the masks, I've been whatever I needed to do. But going back to your original question, composition is number one for me. That is to say, the placement of the objects within the picture plane. Picture plane being the rectangle or the square or the circle, whatever shape that you're working in. It's the placement of the primary center of interest, the primary character or rocket ship or you name it. Position that. And I've always followed the kind of like the ancient Greek concept of the golden rectangle. If you look that up and see that where that primary center of interest is. Once you establish that, don't ever move it. Move everything around it. Your secondary and your third centers where you want to lead the eye. And I kind of like abstractly lead the eye around in a circular shape, almost like a spiral. I mean, if you can see that. And so I established that composition. I can't emphasize that enough for anybody doing art. That composition is number one. Second, for me, the key thing is drawing, good drawing. I don't care what the hell it is. A human, a cloud, a tree, a rocket ship, a flying saucer. I mean, how well drawn is it? That's number two for me. Third would be lighting. How is it lit? And generally that comes out of the scene that you're drawing, you're painting, that you're going to do. If you know you're going to be doing an interior scene with a fireplace, well, you know what the lighting is already. And now the final thing is color, but the color is totally influenced by the light. If there's a blue light on a subject, that affects everything. If there's a red light on a subject, that affects everything. If there's a white light on a subject, that affects everything. And all the colors have to be in that context of what the color of the light is. So that's my basic structure.
Thank you. That's really great. Maybe a little follow up to that. The way you described it, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, that's how I try to work. But one thing that really is amazing to me, like your composition really stands out. Like it's always easy to see what is the center of interest. And as you described right now, it was it was really logical, like how the light and the color is affecting the subject. But that's why I had to ask the question about all this detail, because all the detail in your images, it is not distracting. And that is fascinating me the most. Even if there's a lot of tiny detail, it is not distracting from the main subject. So is there any, I don't know, like a secret to it, how to make that happen? I just remember seeing a great image by an artist I really adore lately, and that had the same problem. Like I couldn't make out the main character at first, and I thought like, wow, that's crazy. Like the guy is kind of a genius, but I really have a problem to see his main character in this image.
I know what you're talking about. I'm not talking about that particular artist, but yes, and there are some people who are fantastic painters, but the fact that the composition isn't quite there. I think one of the great examples of more or less contemporary illustrators was Frank Frazetta. His compositions were powerful. They grabbed you in an instant. It's like a fist coming at you. And I think I approach a picture from the point of view that if it's like you have a fraction of a second to grab somebody's attention. It's like when you're riding down the street and people make handmade signs trying to sell something, and they've written it all over the place, or the letters are too weak. I mean, it should be bam, exactly what it is they're trying to sell you. So that's the same thing it is with composing. I think and then you could add all the details for sure, as much as you like, but they can't overpower the central. Yeah, and you have to keep your central object, whatever it happens to be, clear and readable. In other words, I mean, one of the tricks, I think, if you want to call it a trick, is like it's best if it could read, if it was silhouetted, if you could paint the whole thing out and you could see what the pose and attitude is. In that reads, and that's an old standard I remember that the classic Disney animators used, that their extreme drawings of the character and the actions that they're going through were clearly readable in silhouette. So that's the kind of thing that I have in my head also. And light, the way you light it also focuses on the character. If you can kind of like spotlight the character in a sense. So that an edge light, but so that the intense values diminish the further away you get from your primary center of interest.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a great idea. Like, okay, I got it. Make sure the character is readable in its silhouette. Yeah, I guess that's a great approach. Thanks so much.
If it's not, I mean, it doesn't hit you right away. And I think that for me, I'm not saying that a picture that takes a long time to understand is anything wrong with that. My approach is, though, clarity is the issue. Clarity and understandability. And whatever that takes to do in an image, that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, especially right now, that's really important with all the social media stuff, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Because you're just scrolling, you like really need to hit it on the head in an instant.
You've got a fraction of a second.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Thanks so much.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Thanks for coming up, Comic. Appreciate your questions. So, Greg, it's my understanding that back in 1977, when you and your brother were approached to do the Star Wars movie poster, that you had to work shifts in order to meet your tight deadline.
Yeah.
Would you mind maybe walking through that story and how you got that gig?
Well, we got the gig this way. I always like to thank Mel Brooks. Not that I know Mel Brooks, but Tim and I were doing all kinds of illustration down to a toilet training book, and we said, let's go after something a little more interesting. So we said, have movie posters. So open up the Yellow Pages, which you could do in the day, because I'm talking the 70s. That was the telephone book. And we looked up, I forgot what the hell the category was, movie poster ads, whatever it was. And we opened the page to that. I closed my eyes and pointed to a page. And I looked at that and I called that number. It was a small ad agency in Midtown New York. And I said, well, I'm an illustrator, my brother, and we've done this and this and this and this. Can we show you a portfolio? They said, sure. So they said, come on in tomorrow. So you could do that back then. And so we went into the city. I live in New Jersey. Tim lived in New Jersey. We went into the city and went to the studio. And all around the studio were these paintings, Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein. And I flipped out. I was a Mel Brooks fan, and I certainly am a Frankenstein fan. And it's black and white, and these guys started saying, yeah. It's Mel Brooks is doing Young Frankenstein in black and white, and the guy that did the special effects is doing them for this film. And I said, we got to do a poster. We have to do a poster. We have to. I pleaded with them. And they said, look, the budget's all over. There's no money left. And these paintings are being shipped off to California, to Brooks, tomorrow morning. I said, I don't care. So they said, well, it's up to you. So Tim and I, they gave us a bunch of 8x10s, black and whites from the film. And on the train back to Jersey, Tim and I figured a setup, what the hell was going on in the picture, even though we didn't know what the movie was about. And we did this sketch, and then we did a painting all night long, brought the painting back into them the next morning. They were flipped out that we did this painting overnight. They didn't use it, but 3 years later, they call us and say, you guys got to help us out. We got a poster here that the director needs, he's not completely satisfied with. So we said, fine, what is it? And they said, it's a science fiction movie of some kind. So they hadn't seen it, and they didn't know what it was about. And so we got on the train, went into the city. They showed us a poster by the artist Tom Young. I'm sure everybody must have seen that one. And they said, well, I said, well, that's beautiful. Well, what do you want us to do? Well, the director wants it more comic booky. That was the phrase that he used. And so Tim and I said, oh, okay, I don't know. And we got on the train and said, what the hell is he talking about, comic booky? It's like, so back then, the comic books were not sophisticated in terms of coloring, right? And they were just ink outlines with flat colors. I said, they don't want that. So Tim and I were discussing. By the time we got home to my studio, it was like, yeah, well, they want, I would think, more punch again, more of a dynamic approach in terms of color, particularly color and contrast. So that's why Tom Young's is very grayed down. We took off, they said, keep the same basic composition. We moved things around a bit. I got my couple of models. I shot Polaroid shots to get the lighting on the figures right. And then we mixed up our colors very strong. Tim and I were really into the period, and I still am, in terms of using very strong color. And you can't go wrong with that warm and cool contrast, the warm light of the sword on the figures in the foreground and the blues in the distance. And that extreme contrast is, I think, what they were after. And we brought the painting in. They loved it. And they used it, so everybody was happy with it.
Well, you didn't have the droids in it.
But Gene was talking about, the droids weren't in the painting at first, in Tom Young's painting. And I said, you kind of like need something in the background there. And they suggested, they went and called, I don't know who they called, probably George Lucas. And he came back and said, yeah, put the two robots. And so we painted them in the studio. And the other interesting thing about it, and generally this never happens with an illustrator, is we signed when Tim and I worked together, we always just signed block letters Hildebrandt. We didn't sign Tim and Greg. We just signed it our last name. And so we put it in there very small, figuring it would get wiped out anyway. And when we brought the painting in and they finally sent the image over to Lucas, he said, tell them to make their name bigger. So that never happens. Now, I'm guessing this, Tim and I were famous by this point because we illustrated The Lord of the Rings. We had a global fandom. And so while there was in Star Wars, nobody knew. Many studios turned the thing down, right? Until Fox and L. Ladd Jr. So I guess the thing is to grab attention of our already fandom, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's how we got that job, and that's how it happened.
Wow. That's awesome. And is Wikipedia correct in saying that you guys had a 36-hour deadline to get that done?
They didn't give us a deadline. They said we need this yesterday.
Oh,
The film was coming out in a week.
ridiculous.
So we had 1 week that the film was coming out, and they needed this. They said they were going to use it for newspaper ads and a one sheet outside the theaters. So they needed it, right? So Tim and I got to my studio, and we drew the drawing. We posed the figures, did the drawing, mixed paint up, and started to paint. Tim, I think, went to sleep. By this time, it's like 1 or 2 in the morning. I started painting, and we woke each other up like that until the last, say, 8 hours, where we worked together, and we did it in 36 hours.
Wow. And an iconic movie poster done in 36 hours. That's pretty legendary.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I have always said this. If I knew the thing was going to last so long, I would have spent 2 more hours on it.
Yeah, for sure. Colby Jack, I see you hopped up on stage. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me up here. It's quite an honor to be able to talk to you. It's you've got some amazing library of work, and it's very inspirational stuff. So it's just quite a great opportunity.
Thank you.
So I guess a couple questions. I'm curious about your journey, like into digital, and I guess to start off, first question would be, originally when you kind of started out and you were doing, like, say, the Star Wars poster, this was kind of pre-computer digital era. What was the process like between, like, delivering a painting to the client and, like, how that was, like, kind of mass produced for the public?
Oh, wait a minute. What year are you talking about, roughly?
Just, like pre-digital days, really. Just like what delivery was like.
Well, it was like, this was if I was illustrating Tim and I did several golden books for Western Publishing. One of them was on pandas, and the art director called and said, "You guys, we have this book. Would you like to do it?" Well, he said yes. He said, "Well, come on in." So we went in the next day. He says and goes over the job with us. He gives us a script, and he doesn't give us any other information other than the script and the page numbers, where the copy falls on what page. And then Tim and I go home, and we sit and we start to do sketches. No reference, nothing, but just blocking the whole book out. And little drop-ins, full page, 2-page spreads. And we're taking that on ourselves to how we're going to set it all up and lay it all out. So we get done with our layouts, which can go on for
technical.
Is that what you're asking me, this kind of like thing?
Yeah, just like what that handoff kind of process was.
Well,
Okay,
I mean,
he's talking about the delivery of it,
yeah.
not the making of the delivery.
So, Jane's
Well,
coaching me here,
like-
my wife and business manager and everything else.
He's talking about. Are you actually asking more about how they delivered the art to the publisher or the art director, whoever?
Yeah, more or less. Like, I guess in today's day and age, right? You just work in digital files, and you just kind of.
Oh, nothing like that. You had to get on the bus and the train or the car, what the hell were you using, and go in to the place and go over it with them. I like that because it was human, much more human than now. Personally, I mean, you people met each other and talked to each other. They say, "Hey, you want to go out for lunch?" And, you go out to lunch and you discuss all kinds of stuff, including the job. And and then you go home, you do it, you get on the train, you go back into the city. In this case, it was always in New York in those days when we were doing all this stuff, and you drop it off. And it was very an enjoyable process for me because I loved all the people in New York, the art directors and editors and studio people and everything. They were fantastic. But it was all, there was no such thing as like, I had no Xerox machine, even though the Xerox machine had been invented, and I'd used it in Detroit when I was working in animation, but I didn't have one, and so you had to do everything by hand. And if you'd go into the art director and he'd start to make suggestions, you have to go back home, redraw the whole thing, go back into the city, show it to him, So that went on for 3 or 4 times. Well, that's what happened. So everything was stretched out a lot. Things took more time.
That's pretty cool. I mean, obviously, it's probably a cooler experience to get to work with people so directly, like person to person. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Totally different than nowadays for sure.
I think that's something. Now, I mean, you could call. You literally, like these guys at the studio handling the Brooks and the Star Wars. You call them up and you say, "Hey, I'm an illustrator. I've done this and this and this. Could I show you my portfolio?" Yeah, come on in. That's the way it worked. I mean, it was now. I mean, for somebody and have known for years, it takes you a week to get an appointment to even talk to them, and then you got to get on a schedule to talk to them. It wasn't like that back then.
So just to accelerate now to kind of with the digital space now, do you still work with physical paintings, or have you kind of transitioned to digital, and what's that process?
No, I don't do that. Everything is all pencil, paper, canvas, board, paint, period, end of story. That's what I do. Anything else digital is all done by Jean and people that she employs, and for Spiderweb Art. But me, no. I strictly work in which blows my mind every day when I get up, given the world that it's all about, all the digital world, that painting is still being used. Painting, a painted picture is still in use. I like that because it's handmade. That you got to get. I was born in 1939. So there's a lot about me that still is hung up on real artwork. Like, in other words, I enjoy the animated films, Max Fleischer, Disney, Warner Brothers, you name it, that I know what I'm looking at is real artwork, not digital. Don't take me wrong. I am not demeaning digital. I'm not putting it down. I'm not calling it secondary to anything, but it's just a personal thing for me. That it's physical art. I know that's being photographed. Background paintings, cells, inked cells, opaque cells. You know what I'm saying?
It definitely has its own kind of inherent value when you look at what's becoming in the space with like digital collectibles and digital art and how people present themselves. It almost that human element of having physical paint, and it really assigns value that can be cherished for a long time. So,
well, I like the way it feels. I like to get all slopped up and my hands covered with paint.
Yeah, that's like the war story of every painter is they love the paint under their fingers and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's a physical thing. It's it's what you're used to. It's like I started this when I was a little kid. So I've been at it for 80 years.
Yeah, it's quite the career. I mean, you have a library to show for it. So, I guess into the digital space we're kind of at now. What are your thoughts on the evolution of how people are selling art in the digital space now?
I'm not sure I can even understand that question or respond to it because I never think about it. See, I don't think about that at all. When I do something like with the NFTs that Gene's been handling, Gene handles it. I do the picture. That's it. It's over with for me. So everything else that's done digitally is done by other people.
Nice. So do you have like a storage locker with all your paintings or something? How do you keep that stuff intact? Have you ever thought of doing galleries and stuff like that?
Oh, we do that. We do galleries. Yes, we keep all the stuff either in storage or in the house. Sure. And we do a lot of shows, live shows. I've got a couple of them coming up soon. So
I'll have to keep an eye out.
For me, it's that's my world. I mean, I know so everything is digital now. And it's fantastic. It blows my mind when I look at digital art, especially in film. And I'm sitting there in my mind watching, say, I don't know, whatever super special effect movie, the Pacific Rim, incredible. Yeah, I'm watching the giant creatures, the slowness, the crashing, the details of all those buildings, the water gushing in, and I know that's not real. And I'm sitting in my mind next to George Al, my childhood hero. He did War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, When Worlds Collide, Destination Moon. So there's this sci-fi genius of the day, a special effects man, sitting next to me in the theater watching that, he would freaking pass out. He wouldn't know what the hell was going on. I don't, because I have no knowledge about computers, none whatsoever. I can find my reference. That's what I do. And Gene taught me how to do that. So I'm very, ignorant of the whole process. So to me, when I see a digital film like that, it's magic. I say, wow, holy mackerel. So I'm blown away by the art and by what you do not only in film, but still, like the Aoki stuff, it's beautiful. I mean, all that digital art is fantastic. I mean, it's just so, but I don't do it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the motion that kind of came off on your piece with the Aoki, the heavy metal. It adds just a little bit more to it to kind of just get your mind racing a bit. And and I have it on a digital frame, and it looks really, really great when it's on display. So
thanks a lot. I enjoyed painting that, very much so.
Yeah, I would love to actually see the original painting if I could find it one day, because that. I got the physical heavy metal cover now, and I'm hoping to one day get yours and Aoki's signatures on it. I think that'd be cool.
Well, come on here. It's in my living room.
Oh, of course it is. So, you brought up Pacific Rim, and so I'm a digital effects artist, right? So I do the water and the destruction stuff and film.
That blows my mind.
It blows my mind too, actually. Like just watching Pacific Rim is just this is the peak we'll ever get. This is amazing.
It's incredible to me. The magnificence. I mean, when you stop and think of when worlds collide, if you've ever seen it, you got a still shot of New York Times Square, and then they built the black buildings to conform to the shot, and then used dump tanks to bring the water down the street, and you watch it, and the drops are way too big and all that stuff. But look at this, the water in Pacific Rim alone is enough to, it's amazing to me.
Yeah, that scale always sells the realism and all these things. So, it's interesting. Curious, so since you're so into the physical space, when you watch a movie like Pacific Rim or Superman, you say you see it through a different lens. What exactly does that mean? Are you like looking at composition, coloring, and
everything?
Just everything.
Everything. Movement. The movement of everything. The movement of, say, Pacific Rim again, and all the creatures, but the buildings that Kong and Godzilla fighting. I mean, it's phenomenal to me. And I like the old rubber suit Godzilla too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I can appreciate all of it. And if I pick a Godzilla that I like the new one the best. And
but you do look.
Wait a minute, Jane's talking to me.
You do look for the lighting. You do look for the composition.
Oh yeah, she's reminding me that I look for light and composition.
It's got to be real.
Yeah, and so all that stuff's in my mind I find it very difficult to
color forms.
Yeah, I find it very difficult just to watch a movie. I think as a regular viewer does, and just kind of let it be. Don't get me wrong, I'm entertained, but at the same time, I'm so damn studying everything and trying to figure it out.
Oh yeah, I've watched that movie probably 3 or 4 times just to kind of figure out what even happened, because it was just so much.
Yeah, incredible.
Talk about your splash and stretch issue.
Wait a minute. Well, and then I don't want to criticize certain digital stuff, but certain digital things bug me in terms of movement, like say, I don't want to criticize. I'm not a critic, for God's sakes, but the weight of certain characters, say Spider-Man, the way a real being of that weight would swing, it doesn't seem to look. At once, it looks super realistic. And at the same time, it doesn't. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's got to do with weight, the illusion of weight. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, it's definitely a challenge for animators and people trying to do that stuff. I can only imagine, how they final kind of just what that look is. So,
and in the old days, again, going back to cell animation, I animated. I mean, I worked in this animation department of this industrial film producer, and like I said, I work with animators from Max Fleischer's studio and a Disney animator. So Max Fleischer, he did Popeye, Betty Boop, those great Superman cartoons of the '40s. So that old school stuff of squash and stretch and follow through, creating weight with your character, and how many frames a second and all that, how fast do they move? That I was always into that kind of thing. So when I think digital stuff, I'm looking at it from that point of view also,
So I guess, now, since painting is painting's still popular. I would never discredit what you do and what other people do. But I guess as far as like the tech has evolved and things have gotten pretty crazy, what are you what in the past year has kind of blown your mind, and what are you looking forward to most about the future in this space?
What space?
What space? Talking about digital?
Digital, physical, anything like what, art?
I don't look. To answer the question, I'm being honest. I don't like sit here or stand or whatever I do, look into the future or try to. I get up and do every day what Gene says. Silly shit too. and she's the organizer. She's been my organizer since 1979. So she makes my life and my creation. So I can just sit there and just freaking get lost in what the hell's in front of me. And that's basically all I think about. And that jumps all over the place. See, I'm maybe working on what the hell am I working? I'm working on a private commission of Galadriel. I work on my own stuff that my subconscious, I'll get up, either it's a dream or if I'm laying down, kind of like just to say, the images will just, they keep popping in, and I'll sketch them down, and I'll detail a lot of those out. I've got thousands of those.
You're going to paint the end,
right? So that's a whole world that I just do every single day. I mean, not to be crude, I have a drawing pad in the bathroom. I don't want to waste time. So ideas come to me and I just start sketching. And they don't belong to anybody or anything or anywhere. They're just shit that's in my head. And anyway, I call it the brain dump. This little trap door opens in your top and skull, and it drops into this cardboard box. And that's where the ideas come from. And so I love that immensely. I love also somebody wants me to paint a picture for a Marvel cover. And because I like that whole genre. And it provides the opportunity for me to again, compose, color, light. And that's the main thing for me is that it's about the actual physical production of the object. And that can be anything. So I have no grand scheme. I gave up on thinking about what the hell my magnum opus is, the great work. It's still in the back of my head, that ultimate thing that I want to do. I have no idea what the hell it is. And you kind of like keep on the path. It's like an explorer for me. I just stay on a path, and I turn the next corner, and shit happens, and turn the next corner, and I don't try to figure that out. I wait till it gets here. You know what I'm saying?
That's awesome. You have a kind of a partner in crime to kind of help you, not think about some of that other stuff.
Yeah. We met in '79. She said, "You paint and draw. I'll do everything else," and that's literal. Wow. So that's what I do.
Yeah, that's a full-time job in itself too. So
anyway, I hope that answers your questions, or what the hell.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's awesome to have this much time up here. I feel like I'm taken away from other people. So yeah, I'll step down now. I mean, I could keep going for all night, but yeah. Yeah, thanks for having me up here.
Of course, appreciate you coming up, Colby. And if you have any more questions, dude, feel free to ask.
For sure.
But I do have a question myself. You've been recently showing off your collection on Twitter and YouTube, and Colby talked a little bit about you storing your physical items. Your collection looks so huge. First, how do you manage like all that physical stuff? And then two, like, what's your favorite collectibles that you have? I saw you were showing off your puppets earlier.
Well, I mean, it's my whole past. I mean, I've got objects, comic books, toys, God, all kinds of things from my past. It's my childhood that and young and youth. That's all that's in there. Buck Rogers ray guns and Tom Corbett ray guns and a model of the Nautilus out of Disney's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which I still one of my favorite films. Harper Goff's design of that ship is magnificent. In that salon, once you walk into it, oh my God, with that organ and everything, that still blows my mind. I mean, I've been a Lone Ranger fan since the radio. I mean, he emanated from Detroit, where I'm from, and so then I got the comics. I collect the toys. Oh my God, I like commercial objects too, like the little puppets and stuff of Snap, Crackle, and Pop from Rice Krispies, and so I collect all that and a lot of the classic comics. So I'm just kind of like,
total items do you think, collectible wise, do you hold in your house right now?
oh hell, I don't know.
300.
Well,
Not 300.
yeah, I don't know.
Without
It's I got tons. I got so many books that I couldn't even begin to count them. I mean, comic books, classic illustrated books by N.C. Wyeth and Howard Pyle and Jesse Wilcox Smith, and
The whole Wizard of Oz collection.
all the Wizard of Oz books. I've got all 41 of them, I think it is. I look at that stuff every day. I take those Edmund Dulac. Geez, I look at it every day for inspiration. All the Robinsons. It's magnificent stuff. So I collect that in the great comics. The EC comics, Weird Science, and Tales from the Crypt and everything. That's the stuff that I grew up on. That my brother and I, we would walk down to the soda shop. That's where you bought your comics back then. Leaving school and drop in and buy your comics. Suddenly, one day, we go in and there's no EC comics. That's Tales from the Crypt and Weird Science, because that whole code thing starts with that. What the hell was his name? The psychiatrist, Dr. Wortham. He creates a book called The Seduction of the Innocent. And that comic books are destroying our youth. They're causing juvenile delinquency. And at the core of it, of course, were EC comics, Tales from the Crypt and whatnot, Weird Science. So, boom, they're gone. They got wiped. And then they had comic book burnings in 1955, just like Nazi Germany. It's unbelievable. Because, I mean, it's the same today, I think. People are always looking out there to point their finger at something. Records, it's music, it's rock and roll. It's this, it's that, it's games. These games, it's that. That's causing the problem. I don't know why the hell they go to artwork to try to blame the world condition. You know what I'm saying?
It's pretty ridiculous.
Anyway, so I got carried away.
No worries. I guess bringing it back, you and your brother, did you always know you wanted to get into art, or was there like a catalyst?
No, I can't remember ever not doing art. I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
I think the way I phrase it, I hope it doesn't sound too egocentric. Art chose me. I didn't choose it. So it runs me. I don't run it.
Hey.
In other words, it's a obsessive compulsive behavior, not disorder, behavior. And I've always had that.
Yep.
It's like the obsession is to try to get it, whatever it is I'm trying to get in the moment.
It's your vocation.
What's that?
It's your vocation. What you were meant to do.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a word they use. Yeah, it's like I don't think I would disappear if I stopped doing art. I would vaporize. I wouldn't be here. I'd be the invisible man.
Interesting. Yeah, well, that's awesome. I have a feeling I know the answer to this question, but I want to ask it anyways. Have you been keeping up with like the recent developments in the past year or two with AI art? And if so, do you have like opinions on it or thoughts?
Well, Gene is the one that handles it. I worked on several projects, right? AI things. And I really don't think too much about it myself.
Remy, what is it you're interested in him specifically as far as?
I know there's a lot of controversy around AI art. Artists have, there's varying opinions. A lot of artists say that, it can be good for making references and coming up with ideas, but also there's a lot of controversy too, because a lot of these AI algorithms steal other artists' art in order to come up with their, algorithmic art that they show up. So it's kind of stealing other people's art. But there's a lot of developments, and there's just it's really insane about how visually like realistic some of this AI art is getting, and I was just curious if you've been keeping up with it and or like had opinions on the matter.
Well, Gene shows me a lot of it, and it looks fantastic to me. It's incredible. I think in a way, there's some quality about it. Was beautiful as it is, much of it, light, composition, color, drawing, all those issues that are important to me. There's something about it that doesn't look
has no soul.
Spontaneous. It looks too perfect. In other words, there's no accidents there that create this kind of like really human thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's just too well perfected, and that may well be something that these days that everybody growing used to this is used to and likes, is that perfection. It's like, example for me was, I talked about the classic animation of Disney, Warner Brothers, it's Max Fleischer. Once it moved into the limited animation period in the 50s and 60s and 70s, where you just slid a cell across the street and the teeth would and as opposed to the fully rounded, drawn in and moving in and out of perspective, the character walking toward, none of that. And the people that grew up on the stuff of the limited animation stuff, say the Flintstones and whatnot, that's their thing. I mean, they love it. And I get that. For me, I see that as very, is eliminating all the knowledge and study and work of the past, and you just throw it all away and create something quicker and cheaper, and all that other stuff is lost.
But that
and I think
nothing to do with it.
I know I'm
You're off on a different.
I go off on the tangents.
Yeah, no worries. We love tangents.
Okay, so Remy, even though I know that everybody there is only interested in really hearing from Greg, I gotta throw something in here since you're talking AI. I've spent the last 45 years representing artists, selling their art, getting them work as an agent and a business manager, and protecting their art, protecting it. I can be worse than a dragon if I see somebody ripping off an artist. AI has its issues because artists, I believe, a lot of them are very insecure in holding on to what they have, holding on to what they have created. The truth of the matter is, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, is every artist that's ever lived looks at somebody else to learn from. So I periodically go to the different AI sites and I look through them and I play with them and I try and see, because so many people want us to join into their lawsuits now. And I can't honestly say that I have yet been able to find someone who's ripping off Greg Hildebrandt. I can know that I can find plenty of places that are using his name and his art, and they, throw it into their algorithm and they come up with something that, maybe, but it's not a Greg Hildebrandt. So what is it? It's a combination of 20 different artists' styles that they throw together, and they come up with something that is a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Now, I have come across actual ripoffs. That's a whole different story. And if somebody says to me it's transformational, I'll sue your ass off. Because there is no such thing in my world as I just took this Greg Hildebrandt and I cut it in half and I stuck a skull in the middle of it, so it's transformational. No, it's not. But AI has its place, just like painting has its place, or sculpting has its place. They're all great, okay? People should, if you are an artist, if you are truly an artist and you have creativity and the ability to draw or to paint or to ink or to sculpt, then do it. Use other people, use other artists as examples of what's possible, but don't take their work. Don't ever take their work. That's just wrong.
The other thing, yeah, what Gene just said too about that artist like myself, of all the people that I've named, N.C. Wyeth, Howard Pyle, I've studied their work so many times. I am sure that consciously or unconsciously, the way N.C. Wyeth handled clouds shows up in my paintings.
Sure.
So, I mean, just like she said, every artist has influenced everybody down through time. I mean, we can go back to look at the Renaissance masters, Botticelli. I look at him all the time. Study his hands, his beautiful way he handled hands. I mean, is that stealing from Botticelli? You know what I'm saying?
It's learning. There's a difference between stealing and learning.
For sure. That was very insightful, Gene. Thank you. And the audience loved your perspective on that. I think there's nothing wrong with reference material, but stealing is a whole different category.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Well, curious. So you're saying a lot of people have been approaching you to join lawsuits against like AI companies, or how has that been working?
God, yes. Jesus. Since the New York Times first put their first article out about AI, the next thing I knew, all I'm getting is emails from groups of different groups of artists who truly believe, and they may be, I do not know if those companies are physically taking that art in a way that the end result looks just like a Frazetta or a Hildebrandt or a this or that. I do not know because I don't know their art. And I have been asked, and I think a lot of the comic artists, it's easier for AI to take their work and transform it, let's just put it that way, than it is to transform, say, one of Greg's paintings. But unless someone can show me a Hildebrandt that came out of AI, I can't join a lawsuit.
Yeah.
I don't even want to join a lawsuit.
That's a headache.
So somebody, for example, a lot of the copyright infringements that I go after are links that are sent to me by customers of ours over the last 45 years. And I had one the other day that sent an AI site, blatant, stupid, so stupid. I mean, they literally had it set up so that, if you want Greg Hildebrandt, click here, and then you open up a damn page, and they're using his name, and they're using Joe Jesko, and they're using Adam Kubert, and they're using Andy Kubert, and they're using all these people that are top names in the industry. The problem is none of the art is actually their art. Okay, so all I did was I just blanketly sent it out to all the artists that, I know, and I said, okay, you guys go there, just tell them to take your name down, because your name is what they're using. Now, they're not using your art. They're using your damn name. They're using your reputation. They're using your life. Mm-hmm. And that is just blatant infringement.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And they did. And they took Greg's name down immediately. They don't want to play that game. They want to get away with it as long as they can. And that's it.
No one wants to mess with Gene.
No, nobody wants to mess with Gene, believe me.
I would suggest, I would definitely want her on my side all the time.
That's awesome. Well, I see that on your website you're still accepting commissions, but is there any other work that you're actively, doing right now for projects or personal wise that you want to talk about or maybe let the audience know about?
Yeah, I'm working.
Okay.
I'm gonna be doing a heavy metal cover for a graphic novel that been talking to.
You're doing your Trans-Siberian Orchestra work.
I do all the TSO's work, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which is a winter show that they do. I do all their. Jean designs their program and produces that. Basically, puts it all together with her printer and her assistant, and I do all the art. And they use it on stage. They use the show. I'll be doing that again for this year.
That's 20 years you're doing.
Yeah, I've been doing that for 20 years. I'm kind of like getting into doing my own thing too, more and more.
Well, you're going to do the.
Wait a minute.
You're going to do the Young Frankenstein.
On that Young Frankenstein painting that I did.
On the original sketch.
We were digging through all kinds of stuff and found my original sketch for that.
From 1975.
73. So it was from 1973. So Gene suggested, well, why don't you paint it? So I'm going to be painting that next. And
what about Star Wars?
What's that?
The big Star Wars.
Oh yeah. Well,
Come on.
she wants me to paint the big Star Wars painting very large. Only now with the principals looking like the characters in the film or the actors. Because when Tim and I did that painting, they basically said, "Don't worry about likenesses because nobody knows who they are." Terry Fisher and Mark Hamill, you know. So we never focused on likenesses because they didn't supply us with the heads and the right lighting to get a likeness to start off with.
Yeah.
And so we just sort of like faked it, you know.
So you see, Ray, for the last 45 years, it's been driving me crazy that the Star Wars poster doesn't look like the people in the movie. And so I put it on his board to paint that Star Wars poster again, this time 6 feet tall, with real people.
Well, the thing too is I've mentioned before what I call my brain dump stuff, which for me is hyper personal and very much from the I would say 90% subconscious imagery. So we're talking to heavy metal about that, and they're very interested in that work, particularly insofar as several books are concerned. So that'll be a whole very interesting gig.
Wow, sounds like you have a lot of stuff going on right now.
Oh no, there's a lot more stuff.
There's more.
So I just did a thing I just finalized with CGC. You know CGC, right?
Of course.
Okay. I gotta ask. I hate assuming. Okay, so I just set up a thing with them. They're right now they've just announced the signings that they're soliciting for Greg on trading cards. We're also going to be doing 30 blank comic covers where he's going to be sketching and CGC is going to be slabbing them. Ooh. And then we're going to announce, so I guess I'll start announcing it here. How's that? Very shortly that we're going to take 30 Blackboard commissions through them. And that's going to be fabulous. Blackboards, Greg does these on, it's like a black illustration board. He uses pencils. He uses these kind of, they're almost like a grease pencil. Prismacolor pencils. And they're either in black and white. And when he does them in black and white, they rock because he's thinking backwards. It's like a negative image. To watch him think negatively is amazing. And then we're going to do some of them in just the black and white, some of them with color, and some of them full boards. We've never done this before, so there's going to be 30 of those. There are going to be 30 comic covers.
Wow, so, that's awesome. Definitely make sure you guys are following Greg on social so you can keep up with that signing. I see you create my comic, hop back up on stage. You wanna ask another question before we close this out?
Yeah, when I have the chance, I take it. I just wanted to ask Greg. He has such a long idea. Was there any time that you had to fight with an artist block? Because I just came out of one, and that was the worst ever. Like I actually spent like 3 hours in front of a blank sheet. And I couldn't even take the pencil. So. And I don't even know how I did overcome it. It was just gone after a few weeks. And it had built up over several months. It got just worse and worse. So I don't know. I just want to hear your experience on that.
Make it clear. He didn't understand.
The first part of the question.
He was just asking about if you've ever experienced artist block and if
let me think.
Last week.
Yeah, I was having trouble with a painting. Last week. I don't know if it's artist block. I guess you'd call it that. I just couldn't get the goddamn thing. And I'm painting this and I'm thinking, what the hell? I forgot how to paint. I forgot how to paint. And then you start to blame the brushes. So I start looking for, it's the brush, or it's the brush. I get artist block. Mm-hmm. Yes.
You want to say how you get over it?
And I get over it by Gene saying, Stop right now, put the light off, quit, and go do something else. Do not look at that again, which is basically the way that I think that anybody should work. If you're struggling to get something, forget it. Just stop it and go somewhere else and do something else. And also, aside from that, in addition to that, not that it's artist block, but the way I like to work for myself is I'm working on a painting. And, you go through this whole process. I think a lot of people think for artists that, it's all this kind of like, all Oh, how sweet now! Oh, I'm being happy. Oh, I'm just so happy. No, it's mainly a struggle to achieve it. It's like Chuck Jones, a great animator, said that. He said anxiety is the handmaiden of creativity. So there's a lot of anxiety I'm feeling, and so the paintings or drawing is constantly not looking good to me, and it'll momentarily look good. Then it'll wait. Now, then I'll go back. Once it looks good to me, like say by the end of the day, say by 5 o'clock, I stop. I won't look at it again. And if it's like on a Friday night, I put my light out, the painting's sitting there, I will not look at it till Monday morning because it looked good to me the last time I looked at it. And if it didn't look good to me and I quit and I went for the whole weekend without, it would sit in my head eating at me. It just would gnaw at me. I've got to get that thing. I got to get it right.
Yeah, but if you have a block, Greg, that doesn't.
The block is another thing. Yeah, it happens. Definitely.
Thanks. Yeah, that's interesting because I used to do differently. I don't make much money from art. It's like a side thing for now, and that also means I don't have that much time to do it. Like I always have to make time free for it. We still have small kids that eats a lot of time, and usually when I had that, I was just trying to push through. Like, okay, I don't feel like drawing, but now I take the pencil and I just draw on some lines, some shapes.
Yep.
To get in the mood, and then try to work through it. And it usually worked out fine until like a year ago. Then it started to get harder and harder. I got a project I'm working on. I couldn't work on that one anymore. So I did some sketching. I don't know. I ended up doing just only simple sketches anymore because I had so much anxiety, like you said, that I couldn't start anything that was more complicated until it was a total stop. I couldn't do anything anymore. And now I'm just a little bit afraid that could happen at any time. But I was, like I said, I didn't do what you did. I didn't take time off. I actually just tried to push through it all the time, like just keep at it.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a bad idea.
Well, no, it's this.
Can I make a suggestion here? Because I've been representing artists that have artist block for the last 45 years.
Please do.
If you work yourself up into such a frenzy that you feel like you can't do art, what you need to do is nothing. Don't even sketch. Do nothing. Okay? Look around your life and decide, where is all the pressure coming from? Because obviously with children, you have a lot of it. Okay? And you have to start to compartmentalize for yourself. What are the levels of importance? And if art isn't the most important thing at that time, which obviously it's not since you're not doing it full time for a living, then you have to allow yourself to just relax, take an hour or 2 hours, even when everyone goes to sleep, sit down and, put some music on and sketch a little. But if you try to do it, if you push yourself to do it with anxiety, you're never going to do it. You need to just relax into it. You really do.
Wow, that is great advice. Thanks so much. That's
Sure.
I feel like that I needed to hear that from someone who actually knows about art.
Art was my major. I also paint.
Yeah, Jean paints and draws. She understands art. And she knows what artists go through.
Yeah. I mean, that was what I meant. Like, I know she knows a lot about art, or know a lot about art, and it's different if someone from the industry gives you that advice.
The interesting thing about being an agent and a business manager for 45 years for artists of all caliber is I've always said what I really feel like is a babysitter most of the time. Because that's my world. Is there are times when I have had to walk an artist through a project that should have taken 3 months and it takes 3 years. Because I got to hold their hand through the whole thing because they really believe they can't do it. And I really believe they can. And if I believe they can, then they will. So
my God,
my job. That's my job.
That's crazy. Like, I was thinking about this today. Like, I'm the kind of guy that does everything himself. I don't really like to ask for help or anything. And I was thinking to myself, like, oh man, as soon as I can afford it, I would love to have an art manager, because I just don't want to handle all this other stuff. I just want to have the opportunity to work on the artwork.
It's not easy.
Sure, it is not easy.
No, it is not easy.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I think people too, and I got a reputation, right? I mean, I've been at this for so long and I've done so much stuff that people still think probably, oh, for me it's easy. Well, it's not. It's no. I mean, I've gathered a lot of information in terms of art, in regards to art and color and composition and lighting and all that stuff, but each picture is brand new. Everything I do is brand new, and you're starting all over again in a sense. And you've got all kinds of issues and problems, situations with this new job, painting, drawing, what the hell ever it is. And it's you're going through a lot of this. I'm going through a lot of the same stuff I did when I was a kid, but I mean, you realize eventually that it's all part of the process. So it's there. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the way things go,
Absolutely. Wow. Thanks a lot. That's so great advice. Like, really, 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 I totally appreciate what you two just said. It's awesome.
Perfect.
Thanks so much.
Great.
Glad it helps. You got somebody up there, Remy? Someone else?
Just appreciate you, Comic, for coming up. We're going to have one more question this evening, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Tunnel Rat, welcome to stage.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Oh, hi. Hi, Greg. Nice meeting you. Like, this is quite an honor to actually speak to you. My first encounter with your art was actually when I was in primary school, and a bunch of kids in the playground were fondling over all these trading cards, and it happened to be Marvel Masterpiece, 94 Marvel Masterpiece.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and ever since then, I was just it was nice that you clarified earlier that your art was like dreamy and it's like opening heaven's gates, because that's like when I look at all your pictures on your other fantasy arts, that's like how I would imagine it as well. It's like, oh, it's very dreamy, and it's like, oh, I feel like I'm going to heaven, and then that's how I felt.
Oh my God, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So like I went like, obviously as a kid, we don't look at the artist, we just look at the pictures.
Of course.
And I was just collecting all the pictures, and then when I got older, I started collecting all your other trading cards, like the Flight of Fantasies and what's called, yeah. So all of that. So I'm wondering, is there any new trading cards coming out from you?
Well,
Gene would know that.
I don't know if you saw that the Magic the Gathering just did a set of the Lord of the Rings art.
Yeah, that one. But I was thinking more of like how you all had like the Flight and Fantasies or Best of Hildebrandt or
no, we did those with Comic Images. No, we're not.
Oh no, yeah. So no, so the most recent one was the Magic the Gathering one.
Yep.
Yeah. So no standalone ones.
Nope.
Alrighty. I mean, but yeah. Anyway, thanks. I mean,
Sure.
That's basically what I wanted to ask, and yeah, yeah. So yeah, your art it reached all the way Malaysia. So that's when I found your art. So I'm from Malaysia. So anyway, thanks again for having this talk with us.
Sure thing. Thank you for calling.
All right.
Appreciate you coming up, Tunnel Rat. Hope you have a good night, and shout out to Malaysia. I don't know what time it is over there, but it's probably pretty late. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Greg, Gene, you guys have been wonderful. This has been amazing. Do you guys want to let the audience know anything? Maybe, I think we already discussed all your upcoming projects, the CGC signing and all these new comic book ideas. So make sure you guys go follow Greg's socials to keep up with that. Again, this has been wonderful, very insightful, and I really appreciate you guys' time tonight.
Sure thing.
Just thank them all for coming.
Thank everybody for coming to this, and thank you for asking me to do this.
This was a lot of fun, Remy. Really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Gene. We'll keep in touch, and hope maybe we can do this again sometime.
I would like to.
Anytime, honey.
All right. Have a good evening.
Just walk me through how to use the microphone.
I got you. No worries. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and have a wonderful weekend.
Okay, you will.
Okay, bye.